For over a year, the most advanced tank China had ever built didn't exist. Not officially. What circulated instead were 3 blurred photographs on Chinese military forums, posted under a placeholder designation nobody could confirm. ZTZ-201, no dimensions, no specifications, no acknowledgement from Beijing that the images were real. Western analysts flagged them. Defense journals ran cautious speculation pieces. And then, on September 3, 2025, in the middle of a Victory Day parade marking 80 years since the end of World War II, the question answered itself. It rolled into Tiananmen Square without warning. Low, compact, its turret built from flat polygonal armor planes that caught the afternoon light at angles no previous Chinese tank had attempted. There were no crew visible anywhere on the turret, no hatches, no periscopes, no gunner's optics. Just a sealed geometric shape mounting a single slim gun barrel. Moving in tight formation past flanking Type 99 tanks that suddenly looked like they belonged to a different era. Beijing called it the Type 100. They called it China's first 4th-generation tank. They called it highly intelligent. What they did not call it, what they have still never officially released, is a complete technical specification. That is where this story begins. Not with a press release or a factory announcement, but with a controlled disappearance followed by a deliberate, precisely timed reveal. Understanding what the Type 100 is requires understanding how it was built, and how hard China worked to make sure no one outside a handful of facilities in Inner Mongolia knew it was being built at all. The raw material that feeds China's main battle tank production line does not come from far away. Inner Mongolia's Baotou region sits on one of the most concentrated heavy industry and mineral extraction zones in Northeast Asia. Iron, ore, rare earth elements, and the supporting steel production infrastructure that has made this corner of China the backbone of its armored vehicle program for 7 decades. Open-pit mines cut deep into terracotta and grey hillsides. Massive haul trucks move ore in continuous cycles under a sky that runs from dust pale at midday to deep orange at the end of a shift. The scale is not incidental, it is the point. China does not source its armor plate from fragile international supply chains. The mine, the smelter, the forge, and the assembly line exist within the same regional industrial ecosystem, feeding one another across distances short enough to move by road and rail without exposure to outside observation. The steel that will become the Type 100's hull begins here as ore, moves into blast furnaces, and emerges as billets, dense, rectangular forms of raw material carrying none of the geometry of the finished product, none of the classified contours of its faceted armor surfaces. At this stage, it is indistinguishable from construction steel or pipeline feedstock. That anonymity is not accidental. From the extraction zone, material moves by rail and heavy truck into the Baotou tank plant, known historically as Factory 617, operated today under the Inner Mongolia 1st Machinery Group Corporation, a Norinco subsidiary that has been China's sole main battle tank production facility since the 1950s. The plant occupies roughly 20 square kilometers of integrated industrial infrastructure, smelting, forging, precision machining, and final assembly, all contained within a single compound. Nothing leaves the perimeter to be processed elsewhere and returned. Nothing enters from a subcontractor that would create a paper trail pointing to a new program. Heavy flatbed rail cars carry steel billets along the facility's internal spur lines. Wide load trucks move composite armor module inputs, the specialized ceramic and layered material packages that form the Type 100's classified protection system undercover. The road network cutting across Inner Mongolia's flat steppe between extraction sites and the plant sees the same traffic it has seen for decades. Long, low-profile loads on straight 2-lane corridors, under a wide northern sky. Nothing about the logistics signature of this program looked different from any other production run at the same facility. That was the intent. What the composition of the Type 100's armor actually is, the specific layering, ceramic type and backing material, remains officially classified. Beijing has confirmed the existence of a modular protection package. It has confirmed the GL6 active protection system. It has not confirmed what the passive armor underneath the GL6 is made of, how thick it runs, or what threat level it is rated against. Whether that omission reflects genuine strategic sensitivity or a gap between announced capability and achieved performance is a question defense analysts have not resolved. Both possibilities are consistent with the available evidence. Inside the Baotou tank plant's heavy fabrication bays, the geometry of the Type 100 begins to emerge from flat plate. The hull derives from the Type 15 light tank chassis, a lineage that explains the Type 100's unusually compact combat weight, estimated in the range of 35 to 40 tons, dramatically lighter than the 58-ton Type 99A. It is designed to complement rather than replace. Plasma and arc-cutting equipment shapes armor plate into the irregular polygonal sections that form the hull and turret faceting. Welding rigs join these sections at the precise angles calculated to deflect targeting radar returns and incoming projectiles. Angles that are not aesthetically chosen, but geometrically derived from threat modeling. The turret is built separately from the hull and is fully unmanned. This is not a styling choice. The decision to remove the crew from the turret entirely, relocating all 3 crew members into a sealed armored capsule at the front of the hull, is the single most consequential engineering decision in the Type 100's design. And it is also the decision that carries the most unresolved risk. Removing crew from the turret eliminates the catastrophic ammunition cook-off events that have destroyed conventional tanks in combat. It also means that if the capsule is penetrated, all 3 crew members are in the same compartment. Whether the trade-off between survivability benefit and crew concentration risk has been correctly assessed is something no independent analysis has been able to verify, because the armor specification of the capsule itself is among the program's classified parameters. The hybrid electric powertrain is assembled in parallel. A 1500 horsepower diesel engine pairs with a generator, battery pack, and electric drive motors to produce a system capable of running in silent, all-electric creep mode, reducing acoustic and thermal signature during approach operations. The powertrain integration requires mounting diesel, generator, and electric drive components in a hull volume constrained by the Type 15 chassis dimensions, a packaging challenge that the facility's machining capability had to solve without precedent from prior Chinese tank programs. What happens next in the production sequence is where the most sensitive integration work takes place, and where the publicly available record becomes deliberately thin. The GL6 active protection system consists of 4 corner-mounted phased array radar panels and a central processing suite, capable of detecting, tracking, and intercepting incoming anti-tank projectiles before they reach the hull. Each radar panel is a precision electronic assembly requiring calibrated mounting to maintain overlapping coverage across the vehicle's threat hemisphere. The JD-4 electro-optical countermeasure unit, a laser dazzler designed to blind or degrade incoming guided munitions, requires its own integration with the vehicle's sensor network. These are not bolt-on additions. They are load-bearing elements of the tank's survivability architecture, and their installation requires an assembly environment that the heavy fabrication floor cannot provide. The clean room adjacent precision assembly phase is where the Type 100's electronic nervous system is installed. The phased array radar faces at each turret corner, the EOCM laser unit, the AR heads-up display arrays inside the sealed crew capsule, and the modular auto-loader system that allows the same hull to accept either a 105mm smoothbore gun or an alternative caliber depending on mission configuration. The sealed capsule interior, shown publicly for the first time in the May 2026 training footage, features screen-based, situational awareness displays replacing every traditional viewport. The crew operates the vehicle through camera feeds. They cannot look outside. Whether the redundancy and latency characteristics of that camera system meet the demands of high-intensity combined arms combat at the speed the PLA's doctrine requires, that is a tolerance margin smaller than most independent engineers would attempt to certify. Whether it is achievable at operational volume is still being debated. China has been careful about what it has confirmed here. The modular armament system is confirmed. The GL-6 and JD-4 are confirmed. The AR crew interface is confirmed. The software architecture governing how the tank's sensor fusion, drone networking, and fire control systems interact, the part that makes it intelligent rather than merely capable, has not been officially described in any public technical document. What exists in the open record is a series of claims made through state media interviews and a Global Times report from October 25 asserting that the Type 100 can identify and strike targets beyond visual range using networked sensor fusion. The precision involved in building a system that could do that is not in dispute. Whether the program has actually achieved it at the level claimed, that is less settled. 8 months after the parade, Chinese state media released training footage. May 3, 2026. Xinhua and CCTV simultaneously. The footage showed what the parade could not. The Type 100 in motion across rough terrain. Dust thrown from its tracks in long rooster tails. The sealed hull absorbing ground variation through its torsion bar suspension without the jarring that afflicts heavier platforms. And then, for the first time, the interior, a soldier's eye view from inside the crew capsule. Screens, AR displays, the absence of any viewport to the outside world. The tank was not a parade prop. It was already in the field. The operational picture that emerges from that footage is one that defense planners in Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo have been assessing since the parade. A tank in this weight class, 35 to 40 tons, can be transported by the PLA's existing strategic airlift and rail networks at speeds and in volumes that the heavier Type 99 series cannot match. That mobility changes the deployment calculus for scenarios where speed of force projection matters more than the maximum armor protection a heavier platform can carry. An adversary that has built its anti-armor planning around the assumption that Chinese mechanized forces arrive in a predictable sequence now faces a platform that can arrive faster, in greater numbers, via routes previously considered unsuitable for main battle tank operations. What that removes from an opposing force's operational calculus is not a marginal adjustment. It is a structural change to the threat timeline. The Type 100 is not the largest tank China has ever built. It is not the most heavily armored. What it represents, if the program has achieved what Beijing claims, is the most thoroughly integrated. A platform where the crew protection architecture, the active defense systems, the hybrid propulsion, and the networked sensor suite were designed together from a clean sheet rather than evolved incrementally from a prior generation. If it holds under combat conditions, is harder to replicate than any individual specification. What those combat conditions will eventually reveal about the Type 100's actual performance, and whether the decade of deliberate secrecy that surrounded its development was warranted by what emerged from Baotou, remains, for now, an open question. The tank exists. It is in service. The full technical accounting of what it can and cannot do will not be written in a factory.
This video is created for educational and informational purposes using advanced AI tools and human creativity. All concept scripting and storytelling are independently developed to ensure originality. Visuals and animations are generated or enhanced using AI technologies such as View 3 Meta AI and Grok AI, while final editing and post-production are completed using CapCut and other professional editing tools. No external created content has been copied or reused. Any resemblance to real-world environments, factories, or processes is purely coincidental. All scenes shown in the video are digitally created and do not represent real footage. This content is produced with transparency and follows YouTube monetization guidelines.